We have made a big step in trying to be much more collaborative, much more open. And the simple reason is the pace of innovation that we need today cannot be done by our own. The stretch on the technology that we need today cannot be done on our own. We need to do it together as a community.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gosberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast friends, and welcome to episode 212. I had a very inspiring conversation with Sameer Kalra, the president of the Marine Division and executive vice president of the Alfa Laval Group, which I want to share with you. Sameer is very open about his view on how we shall take on the significant challenges ahead of us. The answer is that we all need to change our behaviour. And Sameer gives examples on how to do that in our industry. I am convinced that you will find our conversation inspiring, especially since every conversation matters. This is Sameer Kalra for you.
Every conversation matters.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Elena. Good to be here today with you. My name is Sameer Kalra, and I'm the president of the Marine Division in Alfa Laval.
And what is your background?
Let me start from the beginning. Maybe it puts some perspective to where I am today. I'm located at the moment in Stockholm. I have been here the last 4 years with my wife, Monica, to whom I've been married for 30 years plus. She has survived me. And I was born and I grew up in India. And my father was an officer in the armed forces. He retired as a colonel in the Indian Army, in the Corps of Engineers. So if I look at my formative background, it was in a rather disciplined atmosphere because typically as officers, you are stationed on the military base. And as a part of the job, you are transferred every 3 years, actually. So I think I grew up with a high level of integrity in my backbone as a part of being the military kid. And I understood that you never knew where you're going to land up next. You just need to be prepared and ready. And I think that has stood in its course during my career a lot. It has helped that background. Post my schooling, I went to study marine engineering at the Directorate of Marine Engineering and Training in Calcutta in India. I graduated as a marine engineer, and then I went out to sea. That's what you're supposed to do when you finished marine engineering. Sailed for 10 years on various kinds of ships, but mainly on large tanker ships, ULCCs, VLCCs. And subsequently, post my first child being born, my elder daughter, we decided that if I needed to spend time with the family, then I needed to be on terra firma. I came ashore and I joined then a company called Aalborg Industries. And I stayed with them for 17 years doing different roles, leadership in sales, service, general management. And in 2011, Alfa Laval acquired Aalborg Industries. And I think I landed up on the asset side of the balance sheet and I'm still here.
That sounds, it's cohesive now. I understand now why you are where you are. So what do you do today? What is your responsibility today?
Lena, I have two responsibilities. One is as a member of the group management of Alfa Laval, where I support decision-making cross-division, cross-functions, which means it could be around sustainability, it could be around safety and a number of other issues. But my primary responsibility as the head of the Marine Division is to set the strategic agenda and the operational agenda for the short, medium, and long term, which means I'm responsible for setting the short-term priorities, long-term priorities, and enable execution across them. In a sense, what we are trying to do here is to become increasingly relevant for our customers, for our people, for the planet, and also as a part of this, become a stronger business over the longer term.
I know we have had guests from Alfa Laval on this podcast before, but maybe a few words about what does Alfa Laval do as a supplier to the maritime industry?
Alfa Laval, let me take it back on the group level. Alfa Laval delivers specialized engineering products and solutions to almost, I think, every industry in the world today. And we work with three core technologies: heat transfer, fluid handling, and separation. And to express it in the simplest way, when I try to articulate it for the marine, think of it this way, that any fuel that needs to be brought into the engine or to a boiler, for example, it needs to be cooled, it needs to be heated, it needs to be cleaned, treated, and all of that equipment to do that is supplied by Alfa Laval, what we call the fuel line. Everything that goes as an exhaust behind the engine, whether it carries CO2 in terms of the waste heat that it has, whether it has SOx, NOx, methane, all of that emission mitigation is equipment from Alfa Laval. Any water that goes overboard the vessel as effluent, whether it is ballast water, bilge water, the equipment to clean that is from Alfa Laval. So you would say emission mitigation devices, heating, separation, fluid handling. And then, of course, we have our Framo business where we do the cargo pumps for the cargo line. And of late, when we acquired the digital business Tom Geo a year and a half ago, now we also have a digital solutions business, which allows for weather routing of vessels across the sea.
So you're very up to date with all the discussions on sustainability then, I understand.
I hope I am. I'm sure I'm going to find out in the next few minutes, but I hope I am, Lena.
Well, what do you think? Are we close to being a more sustainable industry or not?
Let's put it this way, that I think it's becoming increasingly clear from two dimensions. One, through regulation. I think the big thrust comes from the political side. I think if you are a government, it will be difficult to be re-elected or get support from the younger generation if you don't have a green agenda as a part of your total agenda, which of course drives the sustainability across all different industries, no matter where you are placed today. IMO has, put one flag in the ground, which I think could be a bit higher up the hill than where they are today. But we can see other stakeholders, whether it is the EU, who have a very strong agenda in this area. EU would like to be net zero, which is climate neutral by 2050. And now the US, I think it was last week, they have absolutely accelerated the demand in this area. And they have said, along with Canada and a few Pacific nations, that we would like to reduce our carbon emissions by 96% already by 2040. I just think it's fantastic, actually. So that is very clear. So it's the political will driven by the needs of the stakeholders who actually vote for the politicians that drives it. And today, you can't be in the board of a company, whether it's a B2C or a B2B business, without having a sustainability agenda on your portfolio. And I think the journey begins with yourself. And if you look at Alfa Laval, we have taken a very high position on the hill here when we have said we want to be carbon neutral by 2030, actually, which means all scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, which is basically how we heat and cool our buildings, how we power our machines, that's going to be zero. All the emissions, carbon emissions for this by 2030, and we will reduce our upstream and downstream emissions by 50% by 2030 already. So I just think we are moving. You could argue, is it fast enough from the IMO side? But I believe we have a very important meeting coming up in a few months' time, the MEPC 80, and hopefully we will get a stronger ambition in this area than IMO has today.
Well, it's also, when you think about it, it's the United Nations. And there are so many nations in United Nations. So you need to find some common ground there. But I will not defend them because I agree with you. It can't be fast enough.
And Lena, I think here we should take some aspiration from the aviation industry. Remember, aviation industry is probably even more difficult to decarbonize than marine. And the International Civil Aviation Authority, the ICAO, they have actually set a long-term aspirational goal to be carbon zero by 2050. If the aviation industry, which is so hard to decarbonize, can do it, why can't marine? So I think we absolutely need to take a stand here and say we can do it as well, and probably better than what aviation can do. Because after all, Lena, 90% of all cargo is transported on water, and we are accountable for just 3% of the emissions. Let's get it to zero.
I love your passion.
Thank you.
It's the only way forward. You need passion, but then you also need some friends. I mean, you need to work in an ecosystem. We need to work together.
Yeah.
How do you do that at Alfa Laval?
Let's take this a step back, Lena. If I go back in time, we were very strong in our core business, and the view was we needed to do everything ourselves because we knew it best.
Yep.
Now, what happens is now suddenly you get thrown into, and remember, Len, all the easy stuff, which we were really good. That has been, in terms of improving energy efficiency, trying to get ships more efficient, that had been done already because it made economical sense. It was sound decision to do that. Now we come to an order of magnitude which is slightly more difficult. That's number one. Then you need to do things that you were not used to do before, for Alfa Laval to take a decision to go into a joint venture with Wallenius around the ocean bird. As you have interviewed Nicholas before. I mean, it was a huge leap forward for us because this is not core technology for Alfa Laval. And I think it is the first time ever in our history that we have actually recruited an aerodynamics engineer in the company. I mean, it was all mechanical, electrical, electronic software, but an aerodynamics engineer, I mean, that's really a leap of faith in what you're going to deliver here. But we believed in that platform. So from our standpoint, I think we have started to say, okay, we need to do a lot more within the frame of resources that we have. So the only way to accelerate innovation would be not try to do everything yourself, but work with partnerships. And in this way, one example has been, of course, the ocean bird. The second example is, we announced yesterday we had taken a 100% position in this air lubrication system business. The initiative began almost 1.5 years ago, where we took a minority position because we were not really sure of the technology platform. And, Lena, in terms of decision making, when you're very early on a decision and the technology is not yet proven, it's also a bet to a certain extent. So we wanted to be a bit more comfortable. So we said, okay, let's go down this path. If you were to go back 10 years ago, we would never take such a position to say we take a minority share and let the current founders run it. But we did. They have proven it to be a success on larger vessels. We have taken a full position. We have taken a license in a certain area with Orkan Energy, for example, around the low-grade waste heat recovery. So what we have started to do is we work much more with partnerships on the technology side, but we have also started to work much more with partnerships on the thought leadership side. I don't remember for us being so open to sharing our ambitions, our technology platforms with anybody before. Today, we are a member of the Zero Carbon Institute. We are a member of the Methanol Institute. We are a member of the Carbon Capture and Storage Initiative Institute. And here, not only do we get to work with like-minded people who have an ambition to improve, but we are also sharing a lot of what we are doing. We offer our test and training center in Aalborg as a platform from where they could test their new technology platforms. And this is a very interesting story, actually. Our test and training center in Aalborg, it was started, now I need to really go back in time. I think it was 2011, 2012, 10 years back in time. And it was, when we made it, it was because we wanted to test our equipment on land before we actually put it on board a vessel and not create too much trouble for the ship owner. Over a period of time, someone said, yeah, but couldn't we use this for training our service engineers as well on the equipment? Great idea. So it became a test and training center. Then someone said, yes, but if we have all the training facilities, could we not bring the customers down there as well to train them on our equipment? Great idea. So it became a test and training center. Then someone said, yes, but couldn't we co-develop a lot of stuff on this center with other partners as well? So over a period of time, it morphed from a test center to a test and training center to a test and training and development center. And I think that's where you can see how we have moved ourselves in our partnership journey in the way of what was supposed to be a really secretive area where you could not enter without a special access card. Now it's open for everyone, So I just think we have made a big step in trying to be much more collaborative, much more open. And the simple reason is the pace of innovation that we need today cannot be done by our own. The stretch on the technology that we need to do cannot be done on our own. We need to do it together as a community.
I totally agree. I remember maybe 7 years ago when I started my podcast, 7.5 then. I was approached by so many people with ideas, technical ideas and startup ideas and things like that. So I started to say to my network, who wants to take this on? I can't support a startup because I'm only me. I'm a startup myself. And then someone said, well, they can come to my company. They can come to our company. I can integrate them with my technical department. And I felt like, that is not the way Google does this. This is not the new way that Apple and Amazon, they are thinking. They are putting up a problem and they are asking the world, how do we solve this? And that is so different way of thinking. Is that what you're trying to say now? I am not a technician. I'm not your client. I don't know.
What we have tried to look at is, when we look at technology platforms, where does Alfa Laval add value into some part of the total puzzle? And the rest we would like to co-develop either with our customers, either with industry partners or whatever. I don't think we have really gone so far down the thought to say that we have an idea, could someone help us do it? Maybe it's going to happen one day, but we are not there as yet, Lena.
No, but I mean, we're moving that way, because when I was arguing to say, well, who says that you have got all the best technicians in your department to solve a problem? Then I was yelled at because I was not a technician and I didn't know anything about anything, was that person's view. I think you're doing a great job inviting people, opening up, because that's the only way forward.
Exactly.
What crazy ideas do you see out there? Can I ask that? Yesterday I attended a workshop on how to build moonshots, how to have radical ideas turned into reality. And I was so energized by that. So do you see any really crazy ideas? I was thinking about Ocean Bird when I was attending, but it's not a crazy idea anymore.
No, Ocean Bird is a tough technology problem to solve. For us, we also see a tremendous amount of opportunity in terms of making sure our legacy portfolio is fit for purpose and is future-proof for ship owners when they move to new e-fuels like methanol, like ammonia. For us, we have a major task in that area, because when, one of your biggest responsibilities is to make sure that you have customer success for the lifetime of the product, and if it's something that they have bought from us, let's assume that it's a boiler that was bought from Alfa Laval 5 years ago, and the ship owners moved to methanol, and 10 years ago, later they moved to ammonia. It's our job to develop that platform so that the customer could use it for the lifetime of the vessel. Could be 10, 15, 20, and on an LNG carrier, it could be 30 years actually. On a cruise ship, could be 30 years that you need to do it. So that is one big responsibility that we undertake ourselves. Then, of course, and that requires a lot of funding and resources and development into the portfolio that exists with us today. In terms of doing something really, really out there is, let me give you a real story. 3-4 years ago, people in my team came and said, yeah, we want to try carbon capture on board. And I said, guys, look at the complexity of putting such an equipment on board a vessel. Decarbonization is going to happen on land, and there's going to be an e-fuel. So let's not go too overboard in trying to test this area. Okay. But, the good thing about Alfa Laval is it's a egalitarian company. They never listened to me anyway. They decided to go ahead, and irrespective of my... So it was one of those below the radar kind of, they kept doing it in a soft manner, but over a period of time, it was recognized maybe you did not need to remove all the carbon on board. What if you just took 20% off? Weren't you better than nothing? So the idea became, from trying to get rid of all the carbon, which of course would have been an extremely complex affair because the equipment would be rather large, difficult to fit, to an idea where to say, okay, we have a journey to go to net zero, but that doesn't mean we need to do it in one step. Why don't we do it in a number of steps? And today, I don't know if you know about our remarkable project, which we are doing with STENA, with the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative, the Global Center of Maritime Decarbonization in Singapore. We have come together with them. We have the approval in principle from ABS on the project. And the ambition is, in fact, to build the complete carbon capture plant where we take 30% of the CO2 off in our test and training and development center in Aalborg. That's where it's going to be put, assuming that we get a gate approval to do so. And then we're going to put it on board. So if you had asked me this 3 years ago, I said, come on, that's a moonshot. That's never going to happen. So that is one area. And on the industry side, I think there are so many fantastic projects running. People talk about nuclear power. The molten salt reactors is something people talk about. This would have been like blasphemy in a church about 10 years ago. If someone had mentioned it, you would say, come on, it's impossible. But today we say, yeah, maybe. We are open to it. And I think the key task here as industry is not to be too certain about what is the right. You need to be a bit open-minded and a bit humble to say, maybe there is a possibility. Let's give it a chance. You may choose to take a stake in it or not, but be modestly humble here and watch what happens around you and be ready to take the opportunity when it comes. Else, it's just going to pass you by, and then you're going to be sitting on the receiving end of the technology platform.
How do you see the ship owner community responding to that way of thinking?
This is what is the tale of two cities. You have the Nordic and the European ship owner community who leads the charge here. I mean, there is so much praise to be given to AP Moller for the way they have developed the methanol supply chain. There is so much praise to be given to Avellinius, who've decided to take the plunge with us on the wind propulsion. There is so much praise for Stena, who takes the position to say, okay, we will give our vessel to try the carbon capture. So I have so much respect and praise for the lead ship owners. What I do, of course, recognize is these are ship owners who have deep pockets, large fleets. They have an ability, and they view this as an opportunity. They view this as a competitive advantage relative to ship owners, which is if you go into the bell curve, most of the ship owners have less than 5 vessels, Lena. So that's the average ship owner. He is or she is so busy trying to comply with sanctions regulations, trying to comply with emissions regulations, trying to make sure that the ships can just run in a healthy manner. This is probably not so far up on their radar. So you get this, 2 different areas. It's very good. And in every area you have today, you look at the traders, Trafigura, Cargill, they are willing to put their money where their mouth is and, try to go down this path. You look at the cargo owners, whether it's an IKEA, whether it's an Amazon, whether it's a Target, Philips, all of them have planted their flag in the ground and said, what is this? I think this COZEV, Cargo Owners Zero Emission Vehicles, or whatever it's called, I mean, they said we want to have carbon neutral transportation by 2040. I mean, kudos, celebrate these people, because they are the ones where we will test, deploy the new solutions till they become an industry standard. And then after some time in this conservative shipping industry, even the ship owners with 5 ships says, hey, this is economically sound. Let's do it as well. Someone has to start. And I think I'm so proud of the lead ship owners and the lead cargo owners who have gone down this path. And among us as Alfa Lavals and the MNs and the Watsillas and the lead owners in this area who are really doing everything they can to build solutions around making shipping more sustainable.
Hooray. I was asked the other day from a newspaper in Sweden, business newspaper, is there anything happening in the maritime industry? And I felt like, yes. And I spoke for an hour about all the things that you were talking about now.
Yes.
And especially saying, I'm so proud to be a Swede.
Yes.
Because we got so many brains here thinking about how to solve the sustainable part of shipping. And then she wrote an article on 300 words. And I felt like, oh my God. But coming back to that question, how can we make the maritime industry more visible? How can we tell everyone about all the exciting stuff that is happening here? And by that, sort of making the brand of the maritime industry better and shining for the young people, and also for politicians to understand that there are forerunners here, and we are definitely trying to hit the moon.
I think it's a really valid question, Lena. I don't know if you know it, but this is the first time I have ever been on a podcast in my life. I just felt as a responsible industry stakeholder, we needed to be here to tell the story of all the good things that are happening, not just in Alfa Laval, but in the entire industry. That is the platform. As Alfa Laval, what we have done is one step is our Marine Innovation Summit. This is held once a year. It's a completely digital summit. We have one coming next Tuesday. Tom, my boss, he will open the summit, and we are going to get some of the thought leaders across the industry who will come and speak together about the most current issues relevant for the entire industry. And the entire purpose of this exercise is, A, you have thought leaders on the table. They will increase awareness, not just about the industry, but also all the cool stuff that's happening in industry. And in a way, hopefully, accelerate the development, deployment of some of these technologies. But most importantly, the people who listen to this, I want them to be inspired to say, cool, this is what we want to be a part of when we grow up. This is where we want to join. So this is just one initiative. So to wrap it, I would say we just need to be much more visible and talk a much more about our successes and even the lack of them, because from every failure you also learn. We just have to be share more rather than let's not talk about this and let's keep this as the best preserved secret in the world. Like everything we have done historically in Alpha Laval in the past, any development was, if we share it, our competitors will copy. Cool, absolutely right. But the question is, if you are fast enough and you keep innovative, then the lead will always be there. And we need to be daring and bold enough to say, if we want the best talent to join the industry, they need to feel inspired to come and join us. And for that, we need to share.
Yes, I agree. But I haven't met so many people who are saying things that you are saying now. I hear more of the old ones. I've been doing more than 210 episodes of this podcast now. I've been doing this for so long. And I have asked that question to every guest. How can we become more visible? And even people who are paid to do that says, I don't know. I don't know how we can become more visible. And my reason for starting the podcast was more like, we need to hang out where the young people hang out. And they are listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
Some of them are even a guest on the podcast. So that was the purpose all along. And you might have ideas about social media and things like that, but the young people are hanging out there.
Yes.
So do you have a YouTube channel yet?
I think our first step in this direction has been on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
We are much more visible on LinkedIn than we have ever been in the past. And I'm so proud of the team in Alfa Laval who is creating the content for this. We had a series about marine women talks where we tried to tell the stories of some of the women who work in Alfa Laval. What is it like to be an employee in Alfa Laval? And they were, it was unprompted. They were told you have license to speak whatever you like. It's not about, you need to say only the good stuff. And we hope that these young women, they will inspire other women to come and join Alfa Laval. We have, I think, since 2017, maybe, or maybe even before, a network only for women inside, because, very well, less than 1% of the seafarers in the world today, or just about 1%, are women. And we are really keen to get more of them into the industry, because this is, I think, a slightly unaddressed base of future employees on our hands. And it's up to us to make sure we tell the stories about, even it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, come to this industry, you will have everything that you see in other industries. You will get, a lot of learning. You will get a lot of development. You will have a purpose, because there is sustainability is very high on our agenda as well. And if you're in Alfa Laval, you're also going to get a lot of empowerment and accountability along with that. So this is a great place. Come and see it for yourself.
That is a really good initiative, I think. And more of them are needed. When I started, I'm coming back to myself now. I know you are a global company, but I'm coming back to myself. I'm thinking, when I started my podcast, I just wanted to tell everyone in the world outside the bubble of maritime that there is such an interesting industry, and come here and work, and it's so fascinating. And after a while, I realized that the people listening to this podcast are the people within the maritime industry, because it's downloaded in the maritime hubs. Still, I have the ambition to let everyone else know about it, because we are so closed, and we are using a language which no one understands.
It's true.
So we need to open up, as you say, and we also need to show that, this is a great place, and we need to use another language. We need to use other symbols. We need to, we are competing with Apple, for God's sake. About the young people.
You took the words out of my mouth, Lena, because a young software engineer today has a choice to go to an Apple or a Google or to come to work for Storm Geo in Alfa Laval. It's a real example. But in terms of purpose, what they will get in Alfa Laval, because if you can save 3% of a ship's emissions trading across the water by working in Storm Geo by better routing, I mean, isn't that a better purpose than just go and, develop the new iPhone 14 7S or whatever it is called? I'm not sure if that is what would inspire me to go and work there. But having said that, with full respect, it's another business. But I think the purpose that we are holding together in marine around sustainability will be a big motivator to get people from outside the industry to come and work for us here today.
How do you see the future for the maritime industry?
Let's take this, unpack this a bit. If you look at the broader perspective, if you look at from a country standpoint, there are two big items on the capital allocation agenda. A, you're looking for energy security, you're looking for food security, you're looking for supply chain security, military security as a consequence of the war we have ongoing currently. This was not so much on the radar just 2 years back. And look, the world has changed significantly, and that demands capital allocation. And on the other side, we have the big climate change story that is running, and you need to manage your allocation between the two areas. I'm just afraid that the here and now of the security side actually pushes some of the climate responsibility back. But I just know one thing, that the climate change freight train, it's running. It's really big. It's coming at an incredible speed. It's a speed you can't imagine. And when it comes on the horizon, it's too late at that time. If you don't do it today, when you see it, it's already too late, So from that standpoint, the capital allocation around sustainability is as important, if not more, than around the energy, food, and balanced security. And this, I think, will be recognized down the chain. But what will happen due to this is, if you look at what you do with this now, if sustainability is important, one thing is, I read the other day, Lena, that the CO2 budget to get to 1.5 degrees centigrade was 500 gigatons starting from 2020. In the last 3 years, 2021 and 22, we have used 120 gigatons already. And if we stay at this pace, come 2032, we have already exceeded the 1.5C Paris Protocol. This recognition needs to be spread more and more out into the world and the different industries, which means if sustainability is important, the pace of innovation needs to be much higher than it has ever been. The speed at which we develop new solutions to get to zero needs to be much higher. And I think so, looking into the future, one thing I see is, for the marine industry, the pace of innovation needs to be higher, will be higher. Super clear in my mind. Second thing that I see is, I think personally, there's going to be some consolidation in the industry. The reason simply is, you already see today, ship managers are getting bigger and bigger, whether it's the V ships or the Anglo-Easterns or the Columbias, 500, 700,000 ships. So if you're a 5-ship owner, you don't have the capital allocation to be able to deploy digital solutions as the large ship managers do. Ship owning will also, if you're a 5-ship owner, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be difficult for you to manage this. So I think there is going to be industry consolidation, ship owners, cargo owners, all of that will happen. And then because of so many solutions, there is going to be a lot of extra complexity on board. And again, I'll give you a real story here. I sailed between 1983 and 1993, 10 years at sea. During my period, I sailed with just two fuels, heavy fuel oil and diesel oil. The engine platform was the main engine, and you got power from the diesel generators. And not a single extra piece of equipment was added in the 10 years I was at sea. If I look at the last 10 years, now we have started to look at the different fuel that's coming into the mix. If you are a seafarer today, you need to think on, if I go on board, am I going to meet LNG, or am I going to meet methanol? Am I going to meet biofuel? What am I going to meet is not known. I may get into a vessel where I have not just an engine, but also a battery, potentially even a fuel cell is now going on board now. So you have a very different variety of power sources. And if you look at the number of emission, the ESDs, the monitoring devices for reducing emissions, and the emission mitigation devices, SOx, NOx, methane. If you look at the energy saving devices and the energy mitigation device, you get a plethora of equipment on board, which means much higher complexity than a seafarer has ever been used to. while the number of seafarers is dropping. Actually, the number of engineers in the machine room is dropping. So it's going to be a very different work environment. And going back to basics, you just need to be sure you attract the right people and motivate them, give them reliable equipment so they feel happy to work on board, give them an environment where they can remain connected with their family through internet, through high-speed data, so we can actually make sure that shipping remains attractive. This is what I see going forward.
I get two thoughts in my head. One is that I need to speak to an insurer soon, because it must have an impact of the insurance premium that there are so many new technical stuff and things that has to work together. But the other one is, I have never been a seafarer, so I don't know. But depending on what ship you enter, as you say, it differs. And that has also got to do with the way, of course, the big ship owners are maybe building a series of 10 or something like that, or 20 before, which means maybe there are 10 ships that are at least alike. And that is something that people do not really understand, because maybe they think, well, it's like driving a lorry. It's just a different color
Yes.
on the car, but it isn't. I understand that the bridge could look also different compared to what ship you're in. So are we lacking standards for things? I don't know.
I think sometimes when there is change, standards take time to develop behind them, because I think at the moment the industry is in a kind of a test and trial mode. Over time, people will get a sense of, for this ship and this segment, traveling on this route, this is the best industrial long-term solution on that one. So that will become a standard over time. Where we are today is we are just deploying and testing new technologies and say, okay, it makes sense here, but for the following reason, may not be a really good fit on some other place. And I think once that starts to get clearer, with that will also become a new industrial standard. But I think the number of standards will be much more than the conventional ship, where it was a plain vanilla heavy fuel oil or a diesel oil with an engine run vessel, where the standard was easier to make. But now you're going to get many technology standards, both in the machine space, on the deck space, and on the bridge, on the control room as well.
Sameer, I think we could be talking for hours, but maybe not the audience would. Yeah, I don't know. If they would stay on for hours, I don't know. But I find this conversation very interesting. Did you have a role model growing up?
I would not say I had one role model growing up. I had many, actually. And more often than not, it was the manager whom I worked for. And I have been extremely fortunate to work with managers who gave me a lot of empowerment, who taught, just from their behavior, I learned a lot. I used to be, volatility. I was a volatile young man who could get angry extremely quickly till I came into the Scandinavian culture. And then I realized that maybe you could say the same thing in a much more polite way, but you would get the same result. You don't need to get angry to get your work done. You just need to be firm to get your work done, and you need to maybe sometimes get a question put on the table. I think this is something fantastic about the Swedish culture. When a Swede disagrees with you, I'm from an Indian ethnicity, so they will not actually, they will just ask you a question, and then you realize yourself, you're a damn idiot, I just, and I think that slowly became a part of my DNA. Probably I'm not still fully there, but I just think I got so many good role models in my entire career. They saw something in me that I did not. I just think I was really fortunate and I could name many, but it would be unfair to put one or two, but I got many role models in my career, and I'm very happy for that.
Do you consider yourself a role model today?
I hope I am. Whether I'm on time, I'm not sure if I am or not, but the broader organization has to is the judge of that. I try to be as far as possible. You have to lead by example, because the behavior of the leader sets the culture for the team and the organization below him or her. I'm super keen myself on diversity and inclusion. I'm highly inclusive as a leader in my own, at least I think so in my head, I'm very inclusive. And from the feedback I get, I also understand that is true. But Lena, history is the best judge. It's a biased judge, but it's the best judge of what you left behind.
Who would you be curious of listening to in the shipping podcast? Who do you think I should interview the next?
This is the one question I was prepared for before I came to the podcast, because I know you normally ask it. And before the podcast began, we were talking about Ekero. And I will tell you of a person who lives on Ekero and who is probably one of the most passionate people around sustainability that I know. And that's Jonas Kleberg, the owner of Wallenius. I interact with him as a consequence because we have 2 joint ventures together. And every time you speak to him, you get a sense of someone who is really well balanced in the way they think around sustainability, not just for shipping, but on a broad level. If you can bring him on the show, it's going to be a treat for everyone to listen to him.
Thank you. I think I have been trying, but unsuccessfully so far. But maybe now I can give him a reason to come and continue the conversation that we have had.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Sameer, for taking the time to speak to me.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and I really, really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
Every conversation matters.
Thank you, Sameer. I truly enjoyed listening to you saying that the maritime industry needs to open up, embrace change, and find ways to collaborate. Yes, we need to work together as a community. Finally, I don't feel lonely in my crusade anymore. We share so many values and views on what we must do for the greater good. Once you, the listener, have listened to this episode, you probably need to re-listen to hear all the nuggets. But then, share it with a friend and start a new conversation. Thank you for listening. I have more episodes in the pipeline for you. Until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.